I don't want to go way
Oh,
Just
I'm America. How are you? I'm a hugger.
I never got brought to my attention.
Oh no, I'm the beginner.
See you guys.
I'm the one who don't know what I'm doing.
We gotta get a tutor for Linda too.
If you guys, you got at least try to scoot to this one. That way you can sit right there. We're just coloring.
Well, good afternoon. Thanks for coming. And my name is Raymond Waller. I'm My name is Raymond Waller, and this is a health promotion event, and clearly in the framework of gardening. And so I know that we did a little bit of greenhouse, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. And so this should be very helpful. Hopefully it's helpful to you. This seems to be in a kind of a weird period where you get a lot of information on the news about food prices and that type of thing. So whether that's at play or not, just home gardening is a huge win as far as I'm concerned. But before we get going, I want to ask the pastor to come and give a word of prayer.
All right. Let's have a word of prayer. Thank you, Father in heaven, for all the beautiful lessons in nature that you give us, and the fact that we can grow our own food and sustain our lives for healthy living. And I thank you for this gathering and every person here. Pray for your presence to be here and for you to give us practical guidance on how we can apply these principles into our own lives. Thank you so much for your love for us. And we pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I'm going to introduce Sandia, who's my wife, and she is the head of our health department. And she'll introduce our speaker and what.
Okay. All right, fantastic. Again, welcome to everybody. We will not prolong it because we want to hear some exciting information. We're here today with Master Gardener, E.J. Wolf. He comes to us highly talented. He started his garden, if I'm correct, during COVID. And so this is encouragement because he now has several gardens in the area. And we want to get to a place, if we are seasoned or beginning, where we can be self-sustainable in terms of our gardening. So that as prices rise in the store and as we try to eat healthier, because nutrition is at an all-time critical high for us with everything going on for us health-wise, we want to know how we can access that. Welcome, 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 welcome. Welcome and welcome. Further ado, none. EJ, well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Well, I appreciate that introduction. I'm glad to be here. I am not a gardener by trade. I'm a pastor, and I'm from Edmore. The master gardener, I would say, really is my son. He's the one who gets to do all the work. I just get to tell him what to do. And it's a lot of fun. And before I get into it, I want to have one more word of prayer, and then we'll dive right in. Heavenly Father, you are the master. We're so grateful that as we study the wonderful lessons in nature, that you teach us not just how to be healthier physically, but how to grow in our relationship with you as well. In Jesus' name, amen. So, just to get to know you a little bit better, how many of you have had a garden before, even if you were a kid, you had a garden? Okay. Now, how many of you have a garden now? Not in the wintertime, but maybe last year you had a garden? Good. So there's probably many things that you know about gardening that I don't, but I'm going to share with you what I know. And this is our house. And during COVID, we noticed some things that were a little alarming to us. Did anything alarm you when you experienced the last couple of years? And so we thought, well, we've got all this free time, like everything's closing down. What should we do? And we thought, well, let's start some raised beds in the front of our house. And we did 6 raised beds. And then Andrew's like, we're done. Dad, what else can we do? Let's do 6 more. So we did 6 more raised beds, making it 12. We finished those in lickety-split. So now what? We have 20 raised beds in the front of our house,
Wow.
and we also have a couple of greenhouses. So
Wow.
this is what we've done. We've learned how to maximize space in our in our raised beds so that we can grow a lot. We grow a lot vertically, cucumbers and tomatoes and melons. And there's our other master gardener, Anna, his sister, the one he picks on all the time. And together, they have learned a lot in a short period of time. This is our backyard because, of course, after you finish 20 raised beds, what else should we do? Start some backyard gardening. And we tarped the back of the backyard. It used to be beautiful green grass for about an acre around our property. And now it's just, my wife said you can't eat grass, so we started growing lots of vegetables. To kill the grass, we put the tarp out there, and it helps everything to kind of break down a little bit so that you can eventually grow all kinds of fun things and go to the market. And this is a little market that we started off in Edmore, our first year, and we had lots of fun learning not only how to plant the seed, but also how to sell it. And we had some little plants that we sold, some rosemary and oregano, cucumbers and spinach. A big seller was lettuce mix, and the thing I love about lettuce is that it's a quick crop, right? In about 6 weeks from the time you plant it to the time you harvest it, and it just keeps on coming back and back and back and keeps on giving. And it's also something you can sell at a high price. If you've got washed, mixed lettuce, and it sells fast. So it's not only great for your health, but it's also a good moneymaker for kids.
This was your items?
These are all our items, yeah.
Wow.
And then we started making some granola, and we sold that there, and some garlic. So what are some reasons? I've found if you don't have a why, a strong why, you won't grow a garden. So listening to you, what are some reasons to have a garden? Any ideas? Why would you start? You're here, so why would you start a garden? Yeah.
Stay away from chemicals and pesticides.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great reason to stay away.
Easy access.
Easy access, right? Walk outside your front door, and right there you've got food. Right? A lot easier than hopping in your car and driving to Walmart or wherever you go shopping. Any other ideas? Yeah.
Exercise.
Exercise. Yeah, it's a great way to get outside, fresh air, sunlight.
Save on the food budget.
Save on the food budget. Moms and dads love that one, right? That's a good one. Any others?
Fresh food. It's not sitting there for however long.
Yeah. And the nutrients are most dense when you freshly pick your vegetables, right? So those are all good reasons. I've got a couple other reasons here that maybe we haven't thought of. One is when you go to the supermarket and you see empty shelves, you're like, maybe I should start a garden. That's what kind of started going through our head. The war in Ukraine has caused a food crisis. And we hear all the time about floods and droughts. And you think, well, we're not really, we got the 5 lakes around us. We don't have to worry about a drought. But look on a map, where are most of the droughts? This red area over here is California. A lot of our food produce is grown in California. So if you've got a quarter of your produce coming from California and all of a sudden that's gone, what do? Right? California grows a lot, you can see, of different foods that we eat today. I want to share with you a couple other reasons that I think are important spiritually as well. This comes from a book called Adventist Home. She says, fathers and mothers who possess a piece of land and a comfortable home will be what? Kings and queens. Wow, wouldn't that be kind of cool to be a king or a queen of your home? I don't know if I'd ever want to be a king or queen in person, but when you look outside your garden and you see all those wonderful fruits and vegetables, I may never be rich like a real king or queen on earth, but I'm rich in vegetables, right? Got lots of wonderful greens growing in the garden, and that makes me feel like a king. This is another book called Selected Messages. She says, again and again, the Lord has instructed that our people are to take their families away from the cities into the country where they can raise their own what? Provisions. For in the future, the problem of buying and selling will be a serious one. We've already seen that happening already, right? We should now begin to heed the instruction given us over and over again, get out of the cities, into the rural, so that we can grow some good stuff. Another reason to have a garden. Have you seen prices increase? Yes. It's crazy how much food costs now. So another reason to grow a garden, this is another quote from Ministry of Healing. Grains, fruits, nuts, vegetables should constitute the diet chosen for us by our Creator. And anybody here have kids or have ever had kids? Have kids now or have had them in the past? Have you noticed it's a little bit tough to get kids to eat vegetables? There's been a lot of research showing that if you have a garden and the kids are working in the dirt and they're watching things grow, there's a much higher likelihood that they're going to be eating those vegetables. So that's a good thing, right? Get your kids out there, get the exercise they need to. Now, the very first school on earth was actually a garden, right? Adam and Eve were placed in the Garden of Eden, and it's a fantastic school for all of us even today. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Another reason, this is from Selected Messages too, by beholding the scenes of nature, the works of the Creator, by studying God's handiwork, imperceptibly you will be changed into the same image. God created all these wonderful things that we get to eat, and as we work with nature, we can have more of His character. How many of you want to have God's character? Right? Of course. Another book says we should work the soil cheerfully, hopefully, gratefully, believing that the earth holds in her bosom rich stores for the faithful worker to garner richer than gold or silver. I don't know about you, but when there's no food on the shelves, what would you rather have? Gold and silver or a garden full of vegetables? Right? All these quotes I've been taking from this book, Hope in the Soil, and afterwards, if you're interested in this book, I can let you know how to get one. I think they're $9, so they're not expensive, but fantastic information on the spiritual blessings of being able to have a garden. How should our plates look when we eat breakfast, lunch, and supper?
Colorful.
They should be colorful, and I don't know anything that looks more appealing than all the colors of the rainbow we see here that can be grown in the garden. Doesn't that look delicious? A little better than that? Well, I garden, so my kids aren't eating a bunch of this kind of stuff. I think this hamburger is 20 years old.
Wow.
And still looks like a hamburger. Another reason for us to garden is for our health, of course. And we're seeing kids getting diabetes now, younger and younger ages. And why is that? Because of the way they're eating. So, how do you get kids to eat vegetables? This was something I was reading. I wanted to include in our presentation today. Toddlers can be made to like new foods by introducing them how? Early and over, right? So if the kid says, man, I don't want that cucumber, try it again, try it again, try it again. And I went to Korea for 15 years as a missionary, and the vegetables they eat the most there are pickled cabbage called kimchi. And I didn't like kimchi at all until I ate it for 5 or 10 years, and it started growing on me. And I married a Korean lady, and now I eat kimchi all the time. So if you are exposed to it over and over again, you'll learn to love it. But it's a fun activity for you and the kids too, right? Something you can do together. One thing I rarely hear in my house is, Dad, I'm bored. Isn't that wonderful? Because if they're bored, guess what? We got all kinds of fun stuff to do in the front yard and the backyard. And so it's a great activity to do with the family. where you can have a lot of fun that's healthy, both spiritually and physically. I want to share with you this quote too before we start digging deep into our gardening material. Anyone can count the seeds in an apple, but only God can count the apples in a seed. Isn't that beautiful?
Wow.
That was so beautiful. All right, so let's look. There are 4 things that you really need to grow a seed. What would they be?
Soil.
Sunlight, soil,
Water.
water, fertilizer. You don't need fertilizer to start a seed. Fertilizer does help, but it'll start without fertilizer. I've seen people start seeds inside of paper towel. So you can start a seed without fertilizer. One more thing it needs.
God's power.
God's power, of course it does. That wasn't the one I was thinking of. Temperature. So it needs to be warm, right? Have you ever planted something outside and it's too cold and it just doesn't grow? So it's got to be warm. When you're looking at your soil, there's a couple of tests that you should do. This is potting soil, but if you take some soil from your garden area, you're going to take about 2 or 3 inches off. Just scrape it away with a shovel. Take out a couple spoonfuls, put it in a bag, and then go to another spot in your garden. Take off another couple inches, grab it out, and then put it inside of a mason jar. Fill it full of water, and shake it up real good. And when you shake it up, you'll be able to see the different layers in the structure of the soil. So most soil is going to be composed of sand and silt and clay, and this is about the mixture that you want. About 45% sand, 35% silt, 20% clay. And the other test you're going to want to do to make sure that your crops grow well is a nutrition soil test. And you can do them at home. This first one is called a rapid test. You can get it on Amazon for about $25. I don't recommend it. It's a one-time use, but it's better than doing nothing. The other test you can get at Johnny's, and this one will do about 20 different tests. So you've got it for a couple seasons. It's a lot more accurate, but if you want a real, it's a little more expensive though. You're talking more like $40 for that one. And then if you send your soil to Michigan State, and I'll send you information on that in an email. If you haven't given me your email address and name, I'll be sending you some more information with details of where you can get some of the products that I'm talking to you about today. You can send it off to Michigan State, and here's all the things they want you to do to prepare to send it off to them, and they'll give you a report that lists all of the nutrients that are in there, so you know which ones need to be that are missing. And you do the same thing when you're submitting a soil sample to Michigan State. Just take a bucket, scrape some of the soil, a couple scoops of soil from each spot around your garden, mix it together, and then put it in a little envelope, send it off to them, and in a couple of weeks they'll send you a report. Looks kind of like that. So, all right, now we are ready to start looking at what do we need to do to get our seeds started. And in order to get our seeds started, well, of course, we're going to need some seeds. And I've got some seeds here. And I'm going to pass these around. I want you to take a look at them. Some of them look a little easier to guess than others. But we're going to see if any of you can recognize any of those seeds that are there. So look at them carefully and see if you can figure out which ones they are. And we'll, at the end of this, we'll do a giveaway of your very first seeds for the season. The second thing you're going to need is some seed starting mix, and I've got some of that here too, and we'll give that away as a prize today too. And I'll show you the seed starting mix that I love to use. And we're also going to need some trays. I've got at the end down there a tray that you're going to put your soil in. And if you're going to do start in the winter time, like mid-February, if you're going to do tomatoes and peppers, then you're going to want some grow lights and some heat mats. I've got also on the table here tons of seed catalogs. So the one that I probably use the most is Johnny's. But if you start ordering seeds from Johnny's, then they'll start sending you seed catalogs from all over the place. So you give them their email address, that email address gets spread all over the place, and pretty soon, honestly, we've only been doing this for a couple of years, and these are all the seed catalogs now that are coming to my mailbox because I'm getting seeds through Johnny's. Now, some of you might be getting your seeds from your local supermarket. That's totally fine too. The reason why we get ours from Johnny's is because we can get bulk seeds. So we buy them by thousands. And I would say when there's food scarcity, what is going to be a very valuable asset? Seeds, right? And you can keep seeds in the freezer. So seeds will last for quite a long time if you keep them properly. And I would encourage you, if you've got a garden, grow enough that it can be a ministry around your neighborhood, right? Use your garden to make friends with your neighbor. How many of you know your neighbor? How many of you, your neighbors wish they didn't know you? We also have dogs, and we had chickens at one point too, so I need to do some more goodwill towards my neighbor. And so growing things in the garden, the nice thing about gardens is they don't talk back. They don't bark, and it's a great way to make friends with your neighbor. So don't just grow for you, grow for your church family. Our church has a food pantry, and one of the things that I wanted so badly to be able to do with a garden is how can I get fresh food to people at a food pantry? Because if you've been to a food pantry, what do they have? Lots of canned stuff. And they've got dry beans and things like that that are nice too, but mostly what they're missing is fresh food. So after we started gardening, what did we do at the church, Andrew? We started a garden at the church too. So we've got some raised beds at 2 of the 3 churches that I pastor at. And that was a fun church family project to work on. And several of our church members who are not strong enough now to have their own garden, they can come, and it gives them a little more excitement to come to prayer meeting, Pastor, because now they're getting some fresh veggies when they come to church too. So,
Can you tell us how you do your raised beds?
Sure. So I do 2 different heights. I use 10-inch by 12-foot boards and for regular raised beds. If I'm doing carrots, then I'll do a 12 by 10 board. I'll cut the board at about I'll get another board that's like a 12-footer, and I'll cut that into 4-foot lengths so that I've got 3 boards from that 12-foot board, and I'll put a 10-foot by 4-foot raised bed, and then I fill it full of really good soil. And the very best soil in the world, this is a top secret, but I'll tell you, the best soil in the world is at a wood chipping location. And so we went to, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about wood chips coming up, but we went to this place where they were just dumping all their wood chips. And they've been dumping those wood chips for 50 years. So all of those wood chips full of minerals have now become rich, dark, beautiful soil. And so we started loading that up in our trailer, and they had a scoop. They started in a dump truck. And so they went right to the very front of our house, and after we built the bed, they just dumped it right inside the bed for us, and that went really easy. That was really nice. And so the stuff that's growing inside those raised beds is just, it tastes so much better than the store. It looks so much better. I haven't had any problems with pests. Why? Because if you've got great soil, the pests don't come and bother it. One of the reasons why you have a lot of pests is because if the plant is dying, it sends little signals out like, I'm in trouble. And so God designed all these pests to come around and take care of the plants that were in trouble, right? And so as long as your soil is really, really good, then you won't, I won't say you won't have any pests, but you'll have a lot less. So any questions on soil or raised beds? Yeah.
Kind of related to pests, what about animals? How do you prevent them from coming?
That's a good question too. My last slide is what to do about animals. And the solution is get yourself a dog.
Okay. That makes sense.
So I have 9 dogs at home. I'm willing to share, so if you want a dog, you're welcome to get any one of ours. We'd be happy for you to take them off our hands. But we started out with 1 dog, and because the deer were coming right up to the front of our house and eating our shrubs before we had gardens in the wintertime. And after we got dogs, the deer never have come over. And so that's been a huge blessing. They can smell the dog. They stay away from the garden. I don't have any fences up around our gardens. Now, last year we did have, I think, a rabbit that found its way into the backyard garden, but for the most part, the cat takes care of all the little guys, and the dogs take care of all the big guys. So animals can be a huge blessing for your garden.
Aren't there sprays too that could be put on it that are chemically okay? Because I know I have a spray,
Yeah.
and it says it's supposed to be okay, and it's taking care of the bunnies
Yep.
and the deer. We have deer that come.
Yeah.
We don't have any problems.
So there's a couple of things you could spray on that are organic. One is neem oil, Neem. Neem oil is fantastic. You can spray it on your fruit trees, so it doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt your trees. Doesn't hurt you. You wash your vegetables, eat it, no problem. The other thing you can do is I've made a solution with garlic and ginger and red pepper, and you shake that all up, let it stay in the refrigerator overnight, and something about that mixture sprayed on, the animals don't like the red pepper and they don't like the garlic, so they stay away. That's a pretty simple one to do, but every time it rains, what you got to do? You got to get back out there and spray it again. So
That soap also works because I took shavings and put it next to this, and it worked.
yes,
It was that original soap.
some Dawn liquid
It was,
soap.
well, it's Irish Spring. I think it was Irish Spring. It was the original. And you took shavings and put it on next to it. And that took care of things for a while too.
Okay.
The other thing that I've used is dichylomyces earth. It's really cheap, and you put that around your plants. If you've got any kind of beetles or anything like that, or slugs, especially around cabbages and stuff like that, you put a little bit of that dichylomyces earth, and it cuts. It's got razor sharp little edges, and the slugs will stay away. So that's fantastic stuff.
Does that work for trees as well as plants?
If you put that around your trees, it'll work against slugs, but slugs don't usually go around trees. Yep. So,
How about Chinese beetles?
Chinese beetles are fantastic too. Yeah. If you want to buy thousands of beetles, they work great.
Well, Gary, what do they call those? Huh?
You want to get rid of them. You don't
Yeah,
want
right. That's what they call them, right? Chinese beetles. Let me tell you my little experience with them. The first year that I noticed that we had them, so I'd shoo them off. And of course, they'd be on there a couple hours later. I says, "Wow, these are kind of interesting." Then I looked at them. I says, "These things are durable." And then I went in the garage and I got some carburetor cleaner. And I sprayed it on them, and they kind of squirmed around, and they kind of stayed there, which I was totally amazed at. Later on, they fell off.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you what, they're durable.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I put some of those and went to the county extension agent and says, I put them up on the counter on this glass jar with the top on it, and I set it on there. I says, what can I do about these? Well, let me tell you the experience that I experienced. They just rolled their eyes back in their head.
So when I said you can get beetles, there are beetles that are good for your plants,
Okay.
right? And obviously you didn't like those beetles because some beetles will eat other pests, right, that are in your garden, which are helpful for your garden. We don't buy beetles just because we haven't had that problem. And I attribute that to really good soil. I attribute that also to we use that garlic spray that's really easy for you to make at home. And really, that's about all we've done. I've used the neem oil on a few occasions for our trees, but mostly that garlic and red pepper flake spray has kept everything away. I haven't had any problems really with.
Well, I'll try that.
Try it. Yeah.
I mean, they like wild grapevine leaves. They like them.
Yeah.
They'll mulch on them.
Right.
And it seems like they start with the stuff they like,
Sure.
and then after that kind of disappears, and then they kind of graduate on to other stuff.
Yeah. Of all the different potting soils, this is my favorite. So it's called Sunshine Mix 4. I've got some in little bags here that you can see. It's very light. It's made with perlite, gypsum, some lime, and it is fantastic. It's full of nutrients, so it gives starts a really fast start, and it's pretty easy to use. So if you're going to be planting some trees in your trays, planting some seeds in your trays, get out yourself a wheelbarrow, pour some of this Sunshine Mix in there, dampen it all off, then put it inside your trays, and you can start putting your seeds in. So, like I said, seeds need temperature. They need moisture. So by moistening your potting soil first, it gives it the moisture that it needs. And then you should see in probably 4 to 6 weeks, most of your seeds will germinate. There are several ways for you to get water onto your plants, and we were really fortunate at our house. There was already an irrigation system in the front yard. We just repurposed it. We put 4-foot PVC pipes on top of where the water was coming out, and so we used that. It's already on a timer, so
Wow.
I don't have to do any work for watering. It's already automatically set to water every single day. And the tools and things I want to talk to you about today are designed to help your job get easier. Because if you have to water every single day, there's going to be a day that you're going to forget, right? There's going to be that one time when maybe you're out of town. But if you have it set up automatically, it makes things so much easier. Now, you don't have to have an irrigation system that's $2,000. You can get these contraptions that you can put right on your faucets and set them on a timer for $25 on Amazon, and you've got something that'll go on every day for you. There are 3 different ways of irrigating that you can get from this company, Farmer's Friend. This is an Adventist-owned farming supply store, and they've got not only really high-quality material, but they also it's also really inexpensive. So I love using Farmer's Friend. How many of you have used drip irrigation before? Anybody? Nobody? So drip irrigation is really easy to install, and it's mostly good for peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, because they don't like to get their leaves wet. So if you're growing those kinds of things, use drip irrigation. But for most everything else, field irrigation or overhead irrigation inside your greenhouse is the best. And here's a picture.
Why wouldn't drip irrigation just be good for across the board?
So Drip irrigation does get the moisture right close to where you planted it, so it's nice for those kinds of vegetables. But I think it's not good at saturating all of the ground. So having overhead irrigation or field irrigation helps you get the entire field wet. So this other contraption, you can have like 2 different zones. So this is something that's like at my house. It's already there when I bought the house, right? And I've got, I think, 6 zones in our house. So, and it'll just go through the zones for a half hour or 45 minutes. It'll do zone 1, which is the front yard, and then zone 2, zone 3. So those are nice if you've got gardens all over the place. But for most people who are just got a small front yard garden or backyard garden, these things work excellent. So with 2 different hoses, you can have 2 different zones. And one could be on a drip, and one could be over field irrigation. So you can get both applications with that device. If you're starting in the wintertime, you're also going to need some light. So if you don't have a greenhouse, this is something you could start in your basement. So these days, the LED lights are pretty inexpensive, and you can get them started, especially if you're doing tomatoes. Anybody thinking about doing tomatoes, cucumbers, or peppers? Then a couple of these lights and a couple of heating mats will do a world of good to make sure that your seeds germinate. And that's what a heating mat looks like. It just kind of sits on the table. You put your starts right on top of it, and it gives it the exact temperature it needs to grow. So what are some problems that you might have if you're starting seeds indoors? Any ideas?
The space to grow them.
The space to grow them? Well, I mean, here's a tray, and a tray doesn't take a whole lot of space, and you can get like 80 plants on a tray, right? So if you've got 2 or 3 trays, you've got quite a few plants. But any other problems? Light, yeah. So having those nice shelves where you can kind of stack things, especially if you don't have a lot of space in your house, having those shelves with the lights on each shelf makes it easy for you to kind of control everything in that little space that you have. Any other problems?
Like air circulation, air quality?
Air circulation, yeah. So if you don't have good air circulation, then your plants can dampen off, and they can get fungus, mildew, and stuff growing on them. And so one of the things that's really good if you're starting your starts inside is to have a little fan. So the fan helps with air circulation, just a tiny little fan. You don't have to have a big, square one. And the other thing that the fan does is it also helps keep them sturdy. Because when you start taking them outside to harden them off, they're going to fall over if they haven't had some kind of airflow going around them. So we talked about needing light. If your plants don't get enough light, they look like this. We call them getting leggy. Because what are the plants doing? They're looking for light, right? They're begging for light, and so they grow really fast trying to find the light, and then you pretty much just need to throw them away. So the nice thing about those LED lights is just like your watering can be done on a system that's done automatic, you can have a little timer that you plug those lights into that will give your plants light for 10 or 12 hours and turns off in the night too. So you only have to think about, I've got to turn them on, I've got to turn them off. So those little automated things can save yourself a lot of headaches.
Is it detrimental to keep the light on full time, or is it just detrimental to your electric bill?
Well, I would say both, right? Your electric bill, but also what would happen if you kept the light on in your room all the time? Plants need a little rest too. So your plants will do a whole lot better if you let them have some hours of darkness. The other thing that you're going to want to do is start planning out your farm, right? Look at your space, the front yard or the backyard or however much space you're going to use, and think about, all right, which plants am I going to put here? What plants are going to go in this next space? Here's how much room I have, and start, maybe just on a 8 by 10 piece of paper, start writing down, here's where I'm going to put each of my vegetables so that even before you start ordering seeds, you know where those seeds are going to go, right? One of the tools that I would highly recommend if you're doing any kind of outside gardening is one of these long tapes, because our houses are a testimony of who we are, right? And the straighter you can make those rows, the nicer you can make your garden look. It's going to say a lot to your neighbors. They'll appreciate when you've got a nice, beautiful garden in front. And we did a whole lot of digging up around our house, and my kids who hadn't gardened much before said, man, Daddy, who in the world's ever going to buy this house after we leave? But when you make it nice, right, when the rows are nice and straight and you've kept everything up, it makes a huge difference. So we've got in the backyard 50-foot long beds. In the front yard, we've just got all of those beds, but mark it out, right? Measure, make sure you've got everything square, so that when you're finished, everything looks like, wow, this is beautiful. You guys have done such a nice job planning it all out.
So could I ask, you're using your tape measure.
Yeah.
What else to make it straight?
So I use string. So I'll have a stake, and I'll here's where I'm starting my spot, right? I'll tie a string on it. I'll measure out all the way down to 50 feet, put another stake, and then let's say this is my garden space, right? Then I'm going to put another stake over here, and then I'm going to measure horizontal, crossways. Diagonal, thank you. Why would I do it diagonally? Square it up, right? So after I've got this section entirely square, then I can measure my beds. I do 30-inch beds, so I've got about 12 to 14 inches for a walkway. So 30 inches, 30 inches, 30 inches, 30 inches, and I'll put stakes all the way across here, stakes all the way across here with lines, so that everything's nice and square.
So where would you put your vine growing vegetables? On the outer far bank?
So we've got, this is kind of interesting because our house, we've got some grapes that are over here in our garden. Just as long as they've got lots of sun, grapes are going to be happy. What other kind of vine, vegetables, or crops are you thinking of?
Squash, gourds.
So here's what I do with our pumpkin and squash. We put them inside our raised beds too. But what happens with pumpkins and squash? They take up a lot of space. So I plant them right in the corners so that the vines can go in the walkway, and that can leave all of the rest of the space inside the raised bed for crops, right? So you'll know if you're planting squash, one squash plant's going to give you a whole lot of squash, and or zucchini. And so I'll do probably 2 or 3 zucchini plants, and that'll give you plenty of zucchini. And even for your neighbors, and probably for your whole church too. So depending on how big your church is. But you don't have to plant a whole lot of zucchini for you to get a lot of zucchini. Once they start coming, they don't stop. They're a wonderful plant that way.
I had a question about the indoor seedlings. How do you keep the gnats away?
I find that fan keeps any kind of small flying creatures away. So I haven't had any problems with gnats inside. So, and you put that fan on its lowest level, so you're not like blasting your little seedlings, but just a nice light breeze. And if it's got an oscillating head, that works great. So when your seedlings are ready to be hardened off outside, they're tough and ready to go. So your planting layout might look like this, right? Just take out a piece of paper, write down here's what you want to grow, and for things like beets and lettuce, we're going to talk more about this the next time I come, I think in May, about succession planting. So you're going to want to leave some room inside your beds for the next succession, right? So I plant beets for the very first time I put beets in, maybe the end of May. Maybe in about 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, I'm going to start my next planting of beets. Why is that? So you can keep on having them, right? I don't want to have a bunch of beets and then no more beets the rest of the year. So every 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you start the next succession of your crops so that you continually have them throughout the year.
So the different variations of beets, some would mature at different
times too. Yep. So you take that into consideration when you're planning it out too, right? About the timing.
This is going to be obvious, but clearly you've had to do some planning. This is not something you've been able to throw together to make this work.
How much planning did we have our first year, Andrew? We didn't have any planning. So what I'm showing you now is what I've learned over the last couple of years, and some of the things I'm going to be showing you we haven't implemented yet. So we're still learning. It's 2 years since Andrew and I. So I'm qualified to teach gardening 101, but 102. Yeah.
Companion planting.
Yes, companion planting is fantastic. So you can see here in this garden picture, you've got a bunch of flowers, and fascinating enough, you can find varieties of flowers that'll keep a lot of beetles away. So pests and things can be driven away by planting garlic, and we've got lots of garlic growing up on our little farm. And I think they can smell that. They don't like the smell of it, and so that also keeps pests away from our plants really well together. And so intercropping is a fantastic way to get more out of your garden, but it's also good for the other plants, right? Keeping pests and things away.
Just curious, have you ever had any problems with watermelon or eggplant not coming to full size?
Yeah, who hasn't had a problem with that? we all have problems with that. One of the things that will help with watermelon is make sure they're getting watered a lot, right? So having a timer on your watering system will make sure that they've got enough water. Another thing that really helps keep your rows straight are these tools by NeverSink Farm. And in an email, I'll send you links on where you can find some of these tools, but they're really easy to use. They're just on a standard stick and makes it really easy to keep things straight, so you're not having to always run strings. So, and they're not crazy expensive, but they are a little bit of an investment. Even if you don't have a big garden in the front, start small. Do something in your window, right? You can plant some. You'd be surprised how much lettuce you can get out of just a couple of pots in your front window. There's lots of other kinds of cool things I want to try, like vertical gardening. I've showed you. We took some cattle panels and put them on arches around our front yard where the beds were, so that we could trellis snap peas and cucumbers. But this is another really good idea for growing all kinds of different vegetables. I want to do this with strawberries, especially as what's that?
Those are gutters?
These are gutters, yeah. So if you know a gutter company nearby, just ask them, hey, you got any old gutters? That's what we're going to do. Next door to our house, there's a gutter company. We'll take any old gutters and we'll put some dirt in there. And now I'm getting to be an old man. This is kind of nice because you don't have to bend down as much, right? You've got these up high where you can easily reach it. And in a couple of years, Andrew and Anna are going to graduate from Great Lakes Academy, and then I'm going to have to bend down and do all that hard work. Isn't that a cool idea? Some ladder gardening. Looks beautiful and looks fun. Wood lumber has kind of gone through the roof in price, so you might want to price things out. We started before the COVID prices hit on lumber, so we were really blessed because I think the lumber prices doubled or tripled since the time that we bought all of our lumber. But you can also make raised beds with these cattle troughs or these sheets of steel. And what's nice about this is now you're not down here gardening, right? If you build these, you can be right up here and you grab all your lettuce and goodies. And these things, you think, man, where in the world am I going to get that much dirt? Well, you can fill them up with logs, leaves, anything, and then just keep the last 12 inches for your topsoil. But everything below that, if you put logs and stuff down there, it's called permaculture, it will retain a bunch of moisture. So when your roots are looking for some more moisture, they can go down there and they can grab all of that nice, moist logs that are down there and grab the moisture they need.
What about do you have to have some drainage in those big, those oval cattle, whatever you call them?
Yeah. No, because they're deep enough where, unless you're living in an area around here, you're not going to have a problem with so much rain that it fills it all up. But I haven't used those myself. I've primarily been using raised beds. But I wouldn't imagine that you're going to have any trouble. Thank you. So, if you're growing carrots, I would highly recommend a tool like this. And again, it'll be in the link that I'll send you in an email. But it's really easy to use. You just stick that fork down on the ground, pull it back, and it loosens everything up. It makes it really easy for your carrots to go down so your carrots grow straight. Anybody grown carrots before? Have you had any luck with your carrots? They can be tough sometimes, and sometimes you'll see, especially if it's your first year growing carrots, they might have all kinds of funky shapes. So this does a fantastic job of breaking up the soil. It gets some air down in there and makes it so those root crops can go down nice and straight. This is another tool that we use. It's called the tilther. And the tilther doesn't mess up with all the living things that are deep into your soil. So it just stirs up the top maybe 2 inches of your soil. And so if you're mixing in your fertilizers, any kind of nutrients that you're putting down on the ground, on top of the ground, and then you just run this over top of it, it makes it really nice and smooth, and mixes everything in really well. So
it's a manual cultivator?
No. It's run by a drill. So you plug this in down here, and you pull this rope, and it starts the tilther. So that's the motor. Really, really simple. But it does a great job. There's the drill.
So you don't need like a $500
Right.
You don't need any
rototiller.
Don't need a rototiller. So there are many ways that you can start plants. These are some that you would want to use by transplanting. So cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, these are all great things. You can start indoors and then transplant later. But there are some seeds that you don't want to transplant, like carrots, beets, radishes. Why not? Any root crops, you're going to want a direct seed so that they have a better chance of living if you try to transplant them, it'll fall apart and they won't live. If you're going to grow a lot, and we grow a lot, so we're direct seeding. We use a John seeder, and this was made in South Korea, but you can buy them now here in America. And these things are fantastic because they will plant as fast as you can walk. And they've got some that got hoppers that'll do 4 rows at a time. So you walk down your row and it's planting, boom, all of your crops. You take the hopper off, put your different seeds in there, and it will dig a little trench, plant the seed, and cover it up as usual. Fantastic tool for making your job easy. And so I've been investing in some of these tools and trying to learn.
The name of that is Jang.
Is the Jang Cedar, yes. So, and they've got different rollers in here for different size seeds. So you can see these are the different size rollers. So you can there's a little pin, you can put the different roller in there that'll go with your different size seeds. And that's a fantastic tool, but it's, I think, $550. So it's a little bit of an investment. But here's what I would say. If we've got like a little gardening club, it'd be a great idea if somebody's like, you know what? I can do this, and let's share. Because we're not all going to use the John Cedar the whole season all the time. So it would be a great way to be able to kind of get started where everybody doesn't have to rob a bank to get your garden started.
That's what we do anyway.
Good, yeah. Please don't rob any banks to start your garden. A video that I would recommend watching. Anybody like weeds? Nobody here? One person likes weeds. Andrew's hands went like this when I mentioned weeds. There's several tips that I want to share with you to help you have weed control. And one is watching this video called Back to Eden. It's on YouTube, so you can watch it. And one of the things that he uses is wood chips. The wood chips do a number of things for your garden. One, weed control, right? Because nobody likes pulling weeds. It also holds on to moisture. So if you haven't had water in a long time, they can take the moisture out of the wood chips. The other thing it does is it feeds your plant nutrients. So, a lot of people have worried, well, since wood chips are mostly carbon, isn't going to leach the nitrogen out of your soil. But it breaks down nice and slow and feeds your garden. So wood chips are just an amazing way of taking care of your weeds.
They do seem to hold the box elder bugs, though, because our neighbor puts those wood chips out around our mailbox where we had put some flowers. And those box elder bugs are very plentiful.
Are they? So when I'm putting wood chips down, and we put them in between our raised beds just to kind of keep everything nice and neat so that we're not cutting the grass between them, you can put newspaper down or cardboard and then put your wood chips. And the cardboard and newspaper will break down, and that'll save yourself a whole lot of weeding.
So just to confirm again, so you in your raised bed you putting the wood chips and then you're putting obviously the potting soil, topsoil on top of there, and you're getting good results. You're not getting plants that are it's too much nitrogen because the wood chips breaking down. You're getting a good product at the end of the day. Yeah.
So I don't know if this guy took the topsoil off first, but what we did is we didn't know about putting newspaper and cardboard down. We just put wood chips down on top of the grass. And so we ended up getting a few weeds coming through, but every year we put a little more wood chips, a little more, and now the weeds have really drastically been reduced. If you're putting down 6 to 8 inches of the chips, then those weeds aren't going to get the sunlight they need and they'll die. So, some people will put wood chips all over their garden, and then they'll just dig a little bit and plant inside the soil. We didn't do that, but I want to. My son's just like, Dad, how many more wood chips do I have to go get? So right now we've just been using wood chips in our walkways between the raised beds, but my dream is to have enough wood chips all over the backyard so that we can be using them this way. So it's a little bit of work initially to get the wood chips out there, but this is another tool that we have on our farm that we haven't used yet, but we're going to have a lot more fun this year doing it because the number one job that we had last year was weeds. And so what do you think I was studying? Weed control. How am I going to get rid of these weeds? And so this is called a pyro weeder. And after you've got your soil looking like it's prepped, guess what's on top of all your soil? Tons of weed seeds, right? So if you take this, basically it's a torch, down your bed, it will kill. You don't have to like go slow. Nice, fast walking pace down your bed, and it'll destroy any of those little weed sprouts.
So it's not setting the wood chips on fire.
Well, don't use this on wood chips, just on bare soil. Yeah. This is Mr. Connor. He's in Upper New York. He's making about $300,000 to $400,000 a year on his farm, and he uses these fantastic little, he calls them cultivators, but I made one with a wire hanger at home because they were like $30 a head, and I was like, oh man, that seems a little expensive. But basically what he's doing is every week he's taking this little wire down his paths in between his vegetables, and before that before those weed seeds get too long, it just takes them right out. So his gardens are impeccably clean because he's using this simple little method, no reaching down and trying to pull them out, just walking along through his garden with this little cultivator, and does a fantastic job of keeping all the weeds out.
So it's not electrified?
Nope, not electrified. It's just all this wire is doing is grabbing those little weed seedlings that have germinated, and you just see little strands on it, but it's amazing when you look at his garden how clean it is. And he's got different sizes that go in between your crops, so that's a picture of what those look like. But that's a lot of plants. And so you can see how he's doing, $300,000 worth of produce every year because, and you don't want to do a whole lot of extra work, right? And weeds are a lot of extra work. So he's designed these tools to help him save himself a lot of time. I would recommend you've got a nice spot where you can hang all your tools like that so it's close to your garden so that you can easily access your tools. And if something's missing, you can go to your sons and daughters and say, where's my tool? Right?
It looks like you got it labeled too, each tool labeled.
Yeah, if it's labeled nice and like that, that's something this is a picture off the internet, so I wish mine looked that nice, but someday, before Andrew graduates, it will look that good. This is a paper pot planter, and so if you're transplanting lettuce, there's nothing faster than this machine, and there's nothing electric about it. You grow all of your starts in the trays that they provided. You put your seeds in here, and it quickly plants them all evenly, and it comes in its own little paper trays. And as you're walking down the garden, it will dig a hole, put the transplant in and cover it back up as you're walking down the garden. Really, really fast and neat. This setup is about $3,000 for the starting kit, but it includes like tons of paper pot. So it's got everything in it that you need to get started with it. But it's another tool. We just recently got it, and we haven't used it yet, but we're looking forward to it. But I would say, like, if you're looking at getting a John Cedar or a paper pot transplanter, this is something you should do in a club so that not everybody has to go broke. The other thing that can save you tons of time is called a greens harvester. So we love to grow a lot of mixed lettuce at our house, and harvesting is also a lot of work. So this is another tool that's operated by your drill, and you just walk down your row of veggies, and it beautifully cuts all the greens, sticks them in a bag. Then we put them in a big tub with a little bubbler on it so it knocks all the dirt and stuff off. We stick it inside of an old washing machine, spin it, and you can use a tool like this too. This is like your salad green. Maybe at home you've got something a little smaller than this one. But it spins your lettuce dry, because if your lettuce isn't dry, it'll wilt really fast.
That
So-
first photograph you had,
Yeah.
it looked like those were green nylon braids.
They're just rope, and it's amazing. It does a great job of not hurting the plant. It's going fast enough where it cuts it and brings it into this green bag. And you can just dump it right into your bin. So it makes harvesting so easy. This tool, I think, is about $150. The bubbler, you can get a bubbler for about $100, and the tub's another $100. If you got an old washing machine, ours we got for free. We just stick it on spin, and all of our greens are automatically spun for us. So none of this. We were using that for a little while, but it got old pretty fast.
You use permanent press.
Permanent press? No. Just the spin cycle. Just the spin cycle. After you take it off, we've built something that's like this. You just take a couple of fans and nail them on a board so that they can air dry really fast. Then stick them inside your bags and you're ready to go. If we're in the same zone you are for growing, so if you need some season extension, there are several ideas to help you keep on growing even after things start getting a little colder. These little hoop houses, every layer of greenhouse plastic you have on will increase the zone, so you can go another couple months of growing when you use a greenhouse. So this greenhouse is also sold by Farmer's Friend, and if you buy 2 greenhouses, the shipping's free. So we bought a 100-foot greenhouse, and then their cheapest model, which is a 50-footer, and so that saved on shipping. We've got one that's shaped like this, so that if you're growing tomatoes and cucumbers and stuff like that, you've got a lot more space.
Are there plants that prefer greenhouses and plants that prefer just the open air?
So the greenhouse is just for season extension, right? And so if you want to start earlier, especially if you're going to sell at a farmer's market, if you're the first one there with all the veggies, guess who gets to charge the best prices? So season extension is what really helps you if you're wanting to just have veggies for a longer time throughout the year, and if you want to be able to be first to market.
And to keep the critters away.
And it helps keep, yes, for sure. I don't know, what time is it?
4:15.
4:15. I'm almost done. We have some one-day workshops. They're going to be at in Cedar Lake, which is a tiny little town in the middle of the map, close to Edmore, between Edmore and Elma. And if you'd like to go to that one-day workshop, it is $199, but it has 3 meals. You get to stay at the cabins on the site, and for the whole day, you'll see how we're growing and be able to help us and ask all kinds of questions. So instead of an hour, you get more like 8 hours of intense training. So it's a good option, and we also have a 3-day workshop that's $300, $299. So that includes all your meals and your stay there. And that's what the greenhouse looks like. This is not my greenhouse. This is a greenhouse that I'm working with in the community. And there are 5 of us who are reviving this greenhouse. It's fallen apart, and we're putting it back together again. And this is where our classes are going to be taught. And I'm going to talk to you about the youth triathlon. And here's how we keep away some of our pests. And as I said, we have 9 of them at our house, and we want to desperately get rid of some. So if you need one, let me know.
Are they all outdoor or some of them indoor?
Well, it's a Labradoodle, so it's great for indoor or outdoor. Right now, they're all outdoor. If your wife's like, I do not want that thing in my house. They've got a nice coat, so they'll do great outside. And now the mother dog and the dad dog we let inside when my wife's not looking. So. But they're a lot of fun to have in your house too. All right, that's it. That's all I wanted to share with you. Any other questions? You can turn that off.
One question. How many hours a week do you invest in personal gardening? If you could even give a number.
A number. So I spend probably an hour a day, but it's my I go out in the garden and I pray. So I spend a lot of, you don't always have to pray with your eyes closed. You can talk to Jesus while you're in the garden. And so I get up early and I go out there and I'll do some weed pulling, and it's my favorite time of day to weed pull and talk to the Lord. It's after that, I just get my kids going on it. So as long as they know what to do, we're in good shape. Thursdays, I'll go to the market, and we're going to the market at 7 o'clock in the morning in Mount Pleasant, and we're there until 2. But I'm giving away literature. I'm making all kinds of friends with the community. So if you've got a farmer's market, I would highly encourage you, be involved with the farmer's market in your community. Great way to get to know people who want to eat fresh food, right? Nutritious food, organic food. And if you're introducing them to programs like this, it makes it a lot easier to introduce them about other kinds of programs they might be having in the future. So this is it's a fantastic ministry. All right, any other questions?
Is this your hobby or your full-time profession?
I'm a pastor full-time. Yep. So, Andrew, when we started the first 6 beds, I'm like, dude, if we do this, then I want you to commit to doing it all the way through high school. He's like, before he knew what that meant, he said yes. So he's locked in for one more year, and then he'll finally have freedom after he graduates. But
Such a good experience.
I had some landscaping artists many years ago, and they put down plastic, I think, and then they put gravel or rocks on top of it, and weeds are coming through. How do I handle that? Get rid of the plastic, or
so this is going to be a long-term solution. In the back of our house, we've got rock gardens, and I first thought, let's get rid of all those rocks. And about an hour into it, my son and daughter said, "There's no end to these rocks." So, the guy who started,
Back to you.
Back to Eden, his farm was basically rocky everywhere. So he just started putting loads of those wood chips, and then everything started breaking down into really good soil, and so it's a long-term solution to your problem. But if you've got a lot of rocks, trying to pick out all that gravel is going to take forever and a lot of work. So if you're willing to say, you know what, I'm going to put down a bunch of wood chips, and then in a couple, 2 or 3 years later, I'll be able to find some nice soil down there to start gardening with. That's what I would do. Anything else?
I just wanted to compliment you and you guys. You guys have such amazing kids. They seem so like respectful and.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
If you're going to get kids to work, get them when they're young. Because if they're 15, 16-year-old and you start telling them to get out there pulling weeds, forget about it, right?
Well, one of the things that hasn't been mentioned here, my aunt and uncle, this isn't what I was going to tell you, but let me just tell you a little bit of history here. My aunt and uncle grew strawberries and raspberries 2 miles south of town here, and I worked for them. If your soil is steered up, if you ever noticed, wherever you walk, the weeds want to grow because the soil's packed. And where it's tilled up, weeds don't grow like they do where the soil's packed.
Yeah.
So if you can keep it worked up, that'll help you cure a lot of your weed problems.
It's fascinating where they put wood chips at Back to Eden. He's got cars driving on the wood chips. You dig underneath where those cars have been driving over top, it's still nice and loose, and so it's just amazing. The wood chips kind of fit together, so the wind doesn't blow them away. They stay nice. They look nice. There's just so many benefits I see to using the Back to Eden method of using wood chips, and they're free. I mean, you can load them up at a place where they're cutting down trees, or if you see those guys with the big trucks and they've been cutting stuff down and mulching it, just say, come to my house and unload it. I chased down 4 or 5 of those trucks. And so wood chips are just an amazing way to help your garden.
Could you tell us what's in these?
I'm hoping you can tell me. If you know what they are.
You've got 1 through 7.
Yes. So if you know what it is, you can have it. You can guess.
Well, I know what the peas are, number 1.
You got a peas! All right, congratulations. Number 1 is snap peas. One of my favorite veggies, by the way. So we grow lots of snap peas.
Was there is number 3 a squash type?
Nope, not a squash. Anybody else? You saw the seeds. Anybody want to try to guess?
There's some beets in there.
There are some beets. Number 3 he gets beets. Go ahead and give him some beets.
There's some radishes.
There are no radishes. So sorry about, but good guess.
Some lettuce.
There is lettuce. Number 2 is Asian greens. Give his wife
That is
some Asian greens.
extremely small. Asian greens?
Sesame seeds.
There are no sesame seeds.
Are any strawberries?
Oh, I'm so sorry. None of them are strawberries. We do plant a lot of
There's
strawberries.
some carrots in there too.
There are carrots. Number 6 is carrots.
Carrots is a little small, black little dot seeds, right?
No, those are the
These are pelleted.
lettuce.
Oh, the lettuce. Ah, okay.
So you're right that carrot seeds are really tiny,
Okay.
but we use there's clay around them, so they're pelleted, and that way it's just easier to handle.
Okay.
See, that's why I thought these are radishes.
Yeah, I put them in here, and if you've got the tiny little carrot seeds, it'll plant like 3 or 4 at the same time. So when they're pelleted like that, they just go in the right spot.
Do you have any flowers in here, or is it just vegetable?
Just vegetables.
Do you have any kale in there?
There is kale, but since you've won too many, I want you to pick a winner. Who would you like to give the kale to?
I'll give it to her.
All right, very good.
Yay!
We've got 2 more. Number 5 and number 4.
Take a look at them.
Who wants to give
He's a professional.
it a shot?
He's a professional. Yeah.
Right.
You're gonna have to give them away once you guess them. But
Oh, that's okay.
number 5 should be pretty easy, but number 4 is a tough one. Number 5 is green, and number 4 is 2. It's what Popeye used to eat.
Spinach.
Yes.
Spinach in there?
Number 5 is spinach,
That's gotta be spinach. No, that's 4.
and 4 is related to the onion family. Starts with a C.
Not scallions.
They're chives.
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 Go ahead and pass those out to anybody who'd like to grow some chives and spinach.
Let's see. These were the
Spinach.
spinach. I never saw spinach. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Is there anybody who'd like to try some of the potting soil? The first hands up get to try the potting soil we got. There we go. Thank you.
You're not gonna standardize.
This is
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'll definitely like
Chives.
this spinach. I eat the spinach, but I don't. Yeah, there you go.
Excellent presentation.
Hey.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I